Welcome to our discussion on International Olympic Committee, the Olympic movement, and their slow march to oblivion. The context of our discussion will revolve around the once-postponed 2021 Tokyo Olympic Games. So let's get started. My goal is to show you that IOC has lost its purpose, moral compass, and leadership in Olympic movement. It is a sad but predictable downfall for the organization that is supposed to govern and promote the Olympic movement. Unfortunately, it's the same sad tale plaguing most corporations these days. So how did they get to this point? Let's take a moment to look at the history of modern Olympic movement. A French educator and historian, Baron Pierre de Coubertin, founded IOC in 1894. First modern Olympic Games was held in 1896 in the birthplace of ancient Olympic Games, Athens, Greece. IOC is a non-profit organization and a governing body of the modern Olympic movement. As of 2016, it has 206 countries and the respective 206 National Olympics Committee as its members. Let's look back at the road to 2020 Olympic Games. Let's watch as IOC announced on 11 September 2013 which country will be hosting 2020 Olympic Games.
Thank you to Buenos Aires and Argentina for your hospitality. Thank you for co-hosting, Andrea. Commiserations.
Tokyo.
今、56年ぶり夏のオリンピック東京開催が決まりました。会場内大きな拍手に包まれています。
Today, jubilation has turned into anger and frustration, and the sentiment has changed for Japanese people. In the most recent Ipsos poll, majority of Japanese, 78% of them think Olympic Games should not go ahead as planned in 2021. Except for a few, most other countries share the same sentiment as well. Globally, 57% think Tokyo Olympics should not go ahead as planned in 2021. When Japan government announced on 24 March 2020 the one-year postponement of the Olympic Games, on that day the 7-day COVID case average in Japan was around 50. Now in mid-July of 2021, the 7-day average is around 3,000, 40 times increase from last March. On 24 March 2020, the 7-day worldwide average was around 27,000 plus. Now in mid-July 2021, the 7-day average worldwide is around 500,000, almost 20 times increase and rising fast. Also, compared to last year, there are two new variables now, one good and one bad. The good news is that now we have few good vaccines. The bad news is now that we have much more dangerous and infectious COVID variant called Delta. Facing its highest COVID infection rate in 6 months and number of deaths over 15,000, Japan has been put under a state of emergency throughout the Olympic Games, and all Olympic venues will have no spectators. All athletes and officials will be put inside Olympic Village bubble, while vaccination is not required for athletes, so making the bubble pretty much like a petri dish for COVID viruses. It is no question that we live in an extraordinary and once-in-a-lifetime global pandemic. So let's watch a few video clips on how Thomas Bach, the current president of IOC, deals with it.
Thank you very much, President. I think a lot of announcements, a lot of news there, so open for questions if you'd like to. You seem to be over this side, Rachel, so if we start, at the back here, and then we'll come forward. Start here and then we'll move, Steve.
Thank you. Mr. President, obviously nobody wants the Games not to go ahead, but because of the uncertain nature of the coronavirus, I wondered, like every other international body, like every government, you will have discussed contingency plans. What are your options?
I can tell you that today in the meeting of the executive board, neither the word cancellation nor the word postponement was even mentioned. Of course, we are a responsible organization. This is why we have this joint task force, which is having regular meetings, and there we are addressing there are any issues which may arise, but we are not speculating on any kind of future developments.
Well, looks like more infections have emerged among athletes and others involved in the Tokyo Games. But the International Olympic Committee chief insists there is zero risk of COVID-19 spreading to the Japanese public.
We are sitting in one boat with all of you and with all of them, and we are rowing in one direction, and this direction is safe and secure Olympic and Paralympic Games Tokyo 2020.
Thomas Bach says all cases connected to the Games will be isolated immediately. A foreign athlete and 5 Olympic workers have tested positive. The athlete was confirmed as positive while serving 2 weeks quarantine. At the same time, there have been more coronavirus scares for overseas teams arriving in Tokyo.
And therefore, I would like once more to ask and to invite the Japanese people humbly to welcome and support the athletes from around the world. These athletes who are sharing this experience of the pandemic with the Japanese people. And like the Japanese people, they have overcome so many obstacles to be here finally. So the Japanese people can feel with them, and the athletes can feel with the Japanese people. And I'm actually very confident that the Japanese people will then, once the games are starting, at least, I hope maybe already before, not only welcome them, but support them, because this is what the Japanese people have demonstrated since the brilliant Olympic Games at Tokyo 1960.
This is Daniel Sutton. I'm with Network 10 in Australia. My question is following up from the question my friend asked in French, and it is to President Bach. You mentioned this week while discussing transmission issues relating to the virus that there would be zero risk to athletes in the village and to the people of Japan. Do you really believe there will be zero transmission inside the village? And given we already have our first case inside the village, do you fear you may regret your promise of zero risk?
This remark was clearly related to the 3 cases identified at this time. I said that the 3 cases identified at this time have been isolated, and that therefore they are not posing any risk to neither to the population nor to the other participants of the Games.
Thank you. From the Yomiuri Shimbun, President. I understand the Olympic Games have overcome so much obstacles in history, many Olympic Games being held against terrorism, boycott terror, and many other types of infectious diseases. What is, in your view, the essence of meaning holding Tokyo Games through in history? Also, I was a bit surprised and shocked, surprised and ashamed, more or less, hearing you ask Japanese to welcome the athlete. I do hope that most Japanese have no reservation whatsoever to athletes, and they would be sharing their passion or ordeal or joy if possible. Only we have no ways possible to express our actually feelings because we are asked not to join together, not to, make it in a festive mood. What is your concern there? What sort of thing that might hit Olympic Games mood? And what is your message to Japanese people how Olympic Games and sport is all about? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me start there with the Japanese people. We are very well aware of the skepticism obviously a number of people have here in Japan, and we learn this through the media, who is elaborating on this very diligently, and therefore, my appeal to the Japanese people to welcome these athletes here for their competition of their life, and to acknowledge that there it is not for any prize that these athletes are coming here. They have the same interest like the Japanese people, that these games are safe and secure, and for this they accept and even welcome measures, restrictive measures, which make these Olympic Games the most restricted sports event, not only in Japan, as you know, but in the entire world. The meaning of these games will be, on the one hand, the meaning the Olympic Games have always. It's getting the entire world together in one peaceful competition. To have the athletes from the 205 national Olympic committees and of the IOC refugee Olympic team in one country, in one city, in one Olympic village, living together, competing with each other, but living together peacefully, because they all respect the same rules and because they all are subject to the same rules.
One quick important point to make before we discuss IOC's decision and rationale. IOC holds the final say in any decision to hold, cancel, or postpone an Olympic Games. The host city, in this case Japan, has absolutely no say. Let's start with what the Olympic Charter says about the goal of Olympism. It is to place sport at the service of the harmonious development of humankind, with a view to promoting a peaceful society concerned with the preservation of human dignity. There are three key elements sport is supposed to serve: harmonious development of humankind, promoting a peaceful society, and preservation of human dignity. So let's find out if IOC decision and actions reflect any of this. Since Thomas Bach, IOC president, made his zero-risk guarantee to Japanese people on 15th of July, let me share some samples of COVID-related headlines hitting Olympic athletes and officials since then. COVID cases and quarantines are piling up fast. Why does IOC insist on holding the games despite the situation being worse than last year? This chart from IOC on the website may give you a big hint. It's all about the money. As you can see, TV broadcasting rights and corporate sponsorship account for 91% of IOC revenue stream, and this is only possible if there is an Olympic Games. Money is the only reason why IOC did what they did, pandemic or no pandemic. So let's take a deeper look into how much money IOC stands to make from its largest revenue source, TV broadcasting rights.
By 1984, no country wanted to host the Games. Only the United States kept their hats in the ring for the 84 Games in Los Angeles. It became the first and only Summer Olympic Games to have an operating surplus of $215 million. The reason? As the only bidder, Los Angeles had the leverage to negotiate its contract with the IOC, and the infrastructure was already there.
together with the fact that Los Angeles, the second largest city in the United States, arguably the entertainment capital of the United States, meant that they didn't have to do hardly any building. Basically, everything was in place. It was little building they had to do, but not very much.
There was such a surge in revenue that was derived through the media cover itself that actually went straight to the Los Angeles games. And so like the IOC realized, okay, now we should make sure that we ensure that we get that big cut of the media revenue that's generated.
The IOC saw the LA Games as an opportunity to restructure their television revenue distribution. Before, the IOC auctioned its TV rights to the game's local hosts, who were able to keep about 90% of the revenues generated. In the 1980 Moscow Games, the IOC only took about 10% of the revenue. But all of that changed in 1984, when the IOC took 33% of the LA Games TV revenue. Over the years, broadcast revenue for the IOC increased. The 1984 Summer and Winter Games generated $287 million and $103 million respectively. Fast forward to 2016 and 2018, Rio generated $2.9 billion and Pyeongchang generated $1.4 billion. But it wasn't just the TV revenues that skyrocketed. So did the percentage that the IOC takes. Broadcast rights revenues for the 2016 games and 2018 games were 73%. Over its lifetime, the Olympics has grown as more and more nations participate and more sports are added, creating the massive competition we see today.
Assuming TV broadcast revenue of 3 to 4 billion US dollar for Tokyo Olympic, IOC stands to collect anywhere from $150 to $200 million from TV broadcasting rights alone. Of this, $15 to $20 million will go directly to IOC's own pocketbook. As you can see, this and another potential $5 million revenue from other sources are what at stake for IOC with Tokyo Olympic Games. Hosting Olympic Games has become more and more expensive for the host cities, with costs overrun in double or in some cases triple digits. Fewer and fewer cities are interested in hosting Olympic Games anymore. Tokyo Olympic is on track to cost around $25 billion, about 3 times its original cost estimate. But to be fair, a third of that cost overrun comes from 1 year postponement due to global pandemic, something that only happens once in a century. So let's recap. Does holding a Summer Olympic in the middle of global pandemic in a country where the pandemic is still raging truly reflect the goal of Olympism? Does it serve harmonious development of humankind, promote a peaceful society, and preserve human dignity? I think the answer is very clear. A big fat no. In fact, holding a Summer Olympic in Tokyo in July 2021 creates only fear, anger, chaos, and lower athletes and Japanese people's dignity in order to serve IOC pursuit of money. It is unfortunate, but nothing will stop IOC from making money, even at the expense of worsening global pandemic. IOC ignores its own Olympic charter and goals. It is gambling with the lives of its athletes, people of Japan, and the world. And finally, our athletes deserve a better IOC, one that truly serves them, the sports they represent, and the Olympic movement. Regardless of what happens in the Tokyo Olympic, let's hope and pray for a safe environment for our athletes and the people of Japan.